Okay. Yeah, I'll be looking a bit like this. Anyway. Yeah, hello everyone. So today I will talk about transhumanism. And yeah, most of you probably already thought about it, even discussed about it in one way or another. Even if you don't really realize it because you know it through another name. Or just were unaware that this was actually like a concept. For me personally, it was always like since a long time thought about it quite a lot and had quite a few discussions about it, and I figured it could be interesting to bring it here as a discussion topic as well. But yeah, like I said, I know the subject since many years already, and it's especially deeply embedded in a lot of fiction I consume. So yeah, throughout the lecture, throughout the talk, if you don't quite understand something, please ask me about it, because yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there would be something that was just a little too far, somewhere where you would need some sort of context. But yeah, going to the topic. So yeah, it's something people have different opinions about. Some people have religious debates about it. Others just think it's wrong, or think it is the future. I will explain it a bit better shortly. So here on the PowerPoint, the picture I chose, it's I think it's the original book cover from a book called Neuromancer, which is kind of the book that started this whole discussion. I'm reading it right now. And yeah, for me, just looking at the artwork, it's already just kind of fascinating, like the style and what it implies. So what is actually transhumanism? So yeah, the first paragraph is just a definition I got from Google. So yeah, the philosophical movement, the proponents of which advocate the enhancements of the human condition by developing and making widely available sophisticated technologies able to greatly enhance longevity, mood, and cognitive abilities. In other words, technology makes humans go big brain. Or yeah, a simple explanation just would be to gain freedom from from biological constraints through technology. This can range from like even genetics, just like modifying what like how a human is built, to cybernetics, to just using a phone or the internet. And yeah, well, it is called transhumanism because it's in a way going beyond what a human is. And yeah, it is a common topic in fiction. For example, a movie most of you would know is I, Robot, which would be about basically like humans are like made robots which do like all the jobs for them, and they get stuff from them, but there's like one AI controlling them, and they gave them the three laws, like don't hurt humans, follow every human's order, and protect yourself, except if it intervenes with any of the other laws. But then it was like the movie kind of ended up being that those three laws backfired, and the robots tried to protect the humans from themselves. So the movie is based upon the book from the same concept, and the laws are called also Asimov laws. I haven't read the book, but I heard it's kind of like a collection of stories where robots apparently didn't follow the laws, but in the end they always followed the laws, but it just didn't seem like it, which is a quite famous concept anyway. So then Blade Runner, yeah, in the future, there are androids, which are robots that look like machines, and they are banned from Earth. And then there are the Blade Runners, which hunt them. And yeah, I start questioning, like, how far are the humans away from the androids? And in the movie, the replicants, how they're called, act often more human than the humans themselves. And it's even the question, like, if the main character would be a replicant, which never really gets answered. Yeah, which is also based on a book, The Android Stream of Electric Sheep. I don't know, Victor, do you want to say something about that? I didn't read it.
It's a good book, one of my favorites. I think it's a little bit different from the film, but overall this message is quite the same. But I really recommend it to anyone who's interested in this kind of subject.
Yeah, thanks, Victor. Then obviously Matrix. Yeah, the world is destroyed and the humans live in a simulation controlled by the machines, which harvest them. Yeah, Matrix has a lot of, it's based on a lot of philosophical ideas and different stories, which includes Neuromancer, even Ghost in the Shell. And yeah, the movie came out 1 week after I was born. And I think next week, if I'm not mistaken, I'll be 22. So it's an old movie, I would say, and people still talk about it and still try to figure out what exactly it was trying to say. Then there's Terminator. Yeah, just a robot comes from the future where the humans have created an AI which came rogue and destroyed all humans. Fun fact, Terminator is also based on something. James Cameron once had a dream where a robot skeleton chased him, and he was like, I'm gonna make that into a movie. So in the Western world of fiction related to transhumanism, there are common themes. Often you see kind of like, cities full of advertisements, just full of people. And yeah, like, some of them you wouldn't really think they're from different stories or from different worlds. But yeah, I think actually from where I got the pictures from, like one of them, the one on the right, top is, for example, from Blade Runner, and you couldn't tell the difference. Yeah, it's kind of usually often kind of future where I don't really want to live in. Where yeah, the world is ruined one way or the other. But yeah, there are different Western examples also, like Futurama, which yeah, the more I thought about it, the more surprised I became. Where the show is like one of the arguments, like one of the best arguments against transhumanism, at least from what I've gathered. So yeah, if you don't really know what it's about, so the guy on the picture on the left, to Sylvester in the year 2000, he gets accidentally cryogenically frozen and wakes up 3,000 years later in the future, where suddenly there are aliens on the world and flying cars and sentient robots. And it seems like a pretty cool future. But yeah, in the show, there are all these amazing technologies, but instead of kind of seeing what kind of impact this technology will have on society, it's just kind of like the same, just later, like the same as it would be today. And the argument is that like humans wouldn't really change that much, because if we come to the point where people say the ultimate goal of transhumanism would be to go so far as to not have like any weaknesses of the human body anymore. then we would just kind of like grow static and neutral, because there would be no challenge and no goals in life, which is kind of Futurama's argument, where like no matter how far you advance, everything would kind of stay the same as long as you don't change. And you can have fancy functioning phone, but are you really happy with that than with your old flip phone? Or are you even happier with a flip phone compared to how were they called? Like those thing in the movies where you have to like communicate in Morse code. And before that, you used a pigeon. That was my phone, by the way. Yeah. And then it's just something that goes in a different direction, which would be Star Trek. Yeah, me and Victor in the groups, if you have been with us, probably talked about Star Trek at one point or another, where it's like, the kind of the perfect society, where no one is discriminated, and every human has everything they need. And then the shows just goes in a different direction than the other shows, where technology doesn't bring anything bad. For example, like the yellow guy in the background, he's an android, so artificial human in a way. And a lot of episodes are centered about, how far I see from an actual human. And like also from the people in the show, they're never really about, how can I improve my life, but always how can I improve the life of another person, and will my actions be morally just? And I just thought, it's kind of interesting that, like in Western, there's really just this. I just found this one example where they didn't say, "Oh yeah, going too far with technology is bad." So, in contrary to the Asian fiction, mainly Akira and Ghost in the Shell. So yeah, I know a lot of you watch anime, and yeah. So if you're anywhere where somebody talks about anime, the one thing they tell you is go watch Akira and go watch Ghost in the Shell, specifically the movies. So starting with Akira, anime itself was born out of the Hiroshima bombing in the Second World War, and Akira was basically about that and the consequences. The movie itself is in the future, and the opening shots of the movie is this explosion you see in where Tokyo gets destroyed, and then the movie plays in New Tokyo, which is like the rebuilt Tokyo after the Third World War. And one of the biker gangs which rule the city, one of the teenagers has an accident with an escaped government experiment, and then he develops psychic powers, and he literally goes beyond what was initially human, and he just becomes this unstoppable force where the military can't deal with him anymore, and he himself starts to go more and more crazy, but also more and more powerful, and then he just turns into like a really compressed figure out of flesh and machinery, until he gets transported in another dimension where he would be safe, and Tokyo gets destroyed again. And at least from how I understand it, is that they were trying to say, like, there was reminiscent of the Hiroshima bombing, the character who got transformed, where he started to develop after the event, like Japan, and started to kind of like get in a peak of his power, where Japan after the bombing developed a lot in technology and in trade and economy and everything. And yeah, Japan is a weird place today. I remember one day we were in the Ars Electronica in Linz. It is a technical museum, and yeah, one of the guys there said, "Oh yeah, Austria has to deal um, with asylum seekers and needs to make laws about that, contrary to Japan, where they don't have people like that. But they need to think about laws if people want to marry the robots they build themselves." And yeah, and in Japan, it's just known for being a country where there are a lot of people which took it a bit too far with different ways of just how technology influences their life, which this movie kind of tried to warn, where, yeah, it gives us a lot of good things, but also Japan was kind of afraid of what it would have become if it lost its identity, like the character in the movie. So, and then there's, do you want to, oh yeah. So basically, like somebody decided to take like all these stories and put it into like one ultimate story, where, yeah, also in a world where people, where it's just common practice that everyone is a cyborg and can like literally link his brain to everything. And the main character itself is someone who is only a brain in a case, kind of like a ghost in a shell. And yeah, she works in a kind of like a special forces unit where they just deal with with stuff other special forces cannot deal with anymore. And in the world, there are a lot of interesting technologies, going invisible, or just connecting with the internet with your brain, seeing through walls. And yeah, humans don't really have limits anymore. I think also like one of the first lines in the movie, like when they open the movie with the text is race was eliminated. Yeah, people just don't really see that anymore because everyone can literally change his body as much and as many times as they want to. And yeah, the main character in the movie, yeah, she says that she sees life through her own perspective, but she feels really limited in that, and thinks, yeah, and wishes to go kind of beyond herself, and yeah, that which is her goal in the movie and her conflict. The main conflict in the movie, however, is about a hacker who hacked into people to control them. He was called the puppet master, and yeah, he started killing people. One guy, in like he got memories of his family, which were all fabricated by the hacker. And in the end of the movie, there's this fight with this tank here. And if you look above the tank, there's this tree, and on the tree are like the different, like the evolution. It's the evolutionary tree of the humans, and in the fight symbolically, the entire wall gets shut down until it reaches the top where the human is, and then the bullet doesn't hit the word anymore. And yeah, the hacker is there, which turns out to be not actually a human but an AI, which became self-aware through the internet. And yeah, they just have a conversation, the AI and the main character, where the AI says, we should merge with each other. Because the AI itself misses, in a way, the human perspective. It explains that it will never be able to die and doesn't have perspective about life and emotions, and feels limited in its view, but it also understands what the the other main character is seeking, and that's why it proposes to merge, since the AI has perspective of the entire internet and all of the humans. So they both have what the other person is seeking. And yeah, in the end of the movie, they merge, and yeah, the character who helped them, he just asked, I can't remember what he asked anymore, but yeah, the person just says then, yeah, I'm neither the major nor the AI, I'm a new being now. And he leaves the room and the movie ends. At least if I remember it correctly. And yeah, so far this was the only piece of fiction where like they didn't ask what would happen if we go too far with technology, but they ask what will happen if we're not. And yeah, I just found this was yeah, it's a damn interesting take on it. So of course there's also transhumanism in the so-called real life. Everyone has a phone. If you use a phone, you're already a cyborg, per definition. It is something, it's a piece of technology that enhances your life. And yeah, we just use technology to do everyday things, like even glasses or the internet. Which, well, without the internet, we wouldn't talk with each other right now. And yeah, in a way, you can look at the internet, of the internet as a way of hive mind, where literally all the humans are connected. And yeah, I would say we didn't really go farther in our development in just one step than the step of the internet, where literally all the information of all humans is shared with each other. So yeah, I hope I could explain to you a little bit about the topic, a little bit about the topic. So yeah, here are some of the questions I thought about. Alex can post them in the chat. Also, speaking of technology, my computer recently kind of broke. So I lost some of the files. But yeah, I found I used like some of the videos for research. And yeah,
how it can influence us with all that forms of information. And the question came, you know, how can we recognize ourselves and separate the whole informations that we gather, you know, kind of, you know, avoiding that we become vessels of information. So we kind of discussed about that and kind of recognizing that there needs, on one hand, you know, on a bigger you know, from a bigger perspective, as this technology is going quickly, very fast and developing very fast, that it is quite difficult to regulate them. And at some point that, you know, individually in some way, that we have to kind of recognize these things ourselves to say, okay, well, maybe looking at, you know, having the phone for too long, you know, kind of being able to put that away, even though it's kind of, you know, very interesting point also Benny talked about, you know, it becomes a part of our body suddenly, you know, about a test which a Korean man made where, you know, having not the phones with, it felt like as if they had a missing limb, or it's kind of, even though it was gone, it still kind of felt as if it was in the pocket, you know, very, you know, kind of, you know, psychotic almost. But to which we kind of came to the idea that kind of reconnecting with forms of nature and being able to confront yourself, you know, not rely on technology and, or not to become, you know, the object partner of technology, to see it as a tool of it. And at the very end, we kind of also closed with, you know, more positive things with technology, you know, being able to have a Zoom call, or, you know, organs that we can recreate, and, you know, further development in medicine and stuff like that. Or, you know, even for some tools at school, you know, right, to study easier, not just like 100 years ago where everything was more difficult with the lack of technology. So yeah, it was kind of quite wholesome, and I was really happy to have that conversation with you guys.
That's really impressive. Like, I don't know how you summarize that like so concisely. That was literally like everything we discussed, more or less. That's incredible, man.
Thank you. Yeah, great points. Yeah, we also ended our discussions with like misinformation. And also we talked about quite a few big corporations, Facebook, Google, like basically stuff that we use every day. You even said it's part of our limb now, our phones. Like Facebook and Google, I guess, are part of our limb. When we wake up, they're part of our lives. When we go to sleep, they're part of our lives. And yeah, I guess I brushed over some of my ideas in this area, as well as Bauer, about misinformation. And Google recently removed "Don't be evil" from their slogan. And like these two corporations are kind of using AI to get you to be a better product for them, to make more money off you. So because you're not paying for them, like I guess Tesla, if you think about it, like right now, if you pay for a car, that's the product, and you pay for like automatic driving, and you're able to do other things in the meantime and kind of be creative, and it's more optimal for everything. But when you're not paying for it, then kind of, yeah, the companies are trying to use you somehow to make money. And the thing is, with these companies, some of the stuff they're doing is not so ethical. And I also thought about how much power they have over the government, kind of like the lobbying and allowing them to progress at some kind of rate that can't be stopped because the leaders agree with it, right? And I was just thinking about like, oh, this technology is already out there and it's being not used for such great stuff, like the Social Dilemma documentary and several other concepts where it's just trying to trigger your emotions, misinform you, and it's not necessarily being regulated against right now. And we're thinking about the future when these companies are kind of in control. If they're lobbying our leaders and kind of we're allowing them to choose a direction, it's not necessarily always going to be ethical if we're not paying for it and kind of voicing our opinion against them, of being leaders and ethical leaders, non-corrupt. So yeah, I was just thinking a bit sadly about that, but of course there's all these other perks of it where we do pay for the product, and yeah, you can cure diseases where you don't need a lifetime of misery for parents and your family. You can, yeah, I guess even the technology with like green energy, it's like moving a step forward. Electric cars, step forward. I guess even like exploring space, like we don't need to harvest Earth anymore and destroy Earth. We can harvest other planets, and yeah, it's just like awesome stuff we can do. Yeah, sorry, there's some maybe darker and more controversial stuff about can we control what happens, what the limits are if we're not necessarily in control as individuals. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else had points.
Yeah, I think it was kind of interesting how Mana shared that on SF she didn't have her phone, and she was thinking, I mean, I wish I would have my phone, but her life, or her approach to life, changed through not having this kind of convenience. And then when she got home, it obviously changed again. And yeah, just point of reference, I just thought about.
Yeah, one point that was brought up as well in our first conversation was when technology comes to like our body and mutation and stuff like that, I mean at some point we'll be able like to choose like what qualities our children will have or stuff. And yeah, that must be regulated because like, yeah, that will go over the limit. But then yeah, I think actually one question was what was the limit, but we didn't answer that. But yeah, anyway, but I think yeah, Victor mentioned yeah, that one question that comes like, how do we define a human? And I think that yeah, to actually answer that question of like what is the limit would be to answer like what is a human and what makes human.
Yeah, on that point of what is a human, yeah, that's something we touched on in our group because, as Michael was saying, we receive so much information all the time. Like even right now, I see all you guys on my screen, but really you're just a bunch of ones and zeros, right? If you really break it down to the information that is being transmitted to my screen, right? So I guess it's how do we figure out how do I figure out what I think or what I feel? Like, what does that even mean? How do you actually separate that from the constant flow of information? Like, what does it even mean to say that I believe this, I think this, I think that, especially when you engage with social media a lot, right? Like, how do you actually know what you believe? And then even more worryingly, how do you actually know who you are? And anyway, that's another rabbit hole you can go down to, which people have been doing for millennia. So anyway, it's a bit of a different direction. But I guess in some degree, you can never really separate yourself from society, right? You're not just this individual that you can pluck out of society and you're just this singular thing, the singular entity, right? But now I think that's even more true than ever, that we're just so connected, but how do we figure out, anyway, how do you figure out how do I figure out what I actually think? And that's kind of the Western dream anyway, this individualist dream, right? Individual perfection. So what does that even mean anymore, because what does it mean to be an individual in in this kind of day and age? Yeah. So I think that's kind of that thing, right? Who knows what we're going to become in 100 years' time, right? We might not resemble anything like humans anymore. And what does that mean? So yeah. There's a good book called Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari. Talks all about this kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Also like to what Anya mentioned, one day we have to think about like what we put in our children. I was just thinking, yeah, but we don't have to think about that now. But actually, like already 2000 years ago, or even longer, I'm not so sure. Like there was the first old Greek story about I think it was called an automaton, like the statues which are like kind of automated. Like it's kind of like in Greek mythology. And yeah, there was one guy who built Talos, he was called, which was a robot who patrolled the island. And then in the end, he was tricked, and yeah, he was, I think, promised freedom or something. And for just a moment, he was hesitating, and then he got, then like somebody opened the cork on his Achilles heel, and like his life juice was running out, and he died, more or less. And yeah, this story is, I think, older than like 2000 years, and people were already thinking about, machines and what if they could think. And yeah, we still don't really have a clear answer to that. So yeah.
Yeah, and while we're thinking about how we should define a human, then yeah, like if we manage to define it perfectly and create a machine that defines a human being, then yeah, like are we discriminating by not treating it as a human when it's defined as a human? That's also something to think about, because will they have to be the same class as us, or if they're more productive than us, then are they more than human? Because they have feelings and they define a human and they do more than us. So should they get better jobs than us? And is that discrimination against normal human beings? Yeah, I yeah, it's a bit concerned on how to treat them. Like, do we treat them as machines or as humans then?
Well, when it comes to things like artificial intelligence or artificial humans, but mainly the intelligence, which is probably like the start, like it can't never have real emotions or real intuition and these kind of things, because the way it's created, it's like it's just lots of information input into that machine or something, so it can't never create something on its own. Everything is just based on the amount of information it has. So yeah, that's my quite clear point of view on these things. So there won't be nothing that could possibly be human or more human than real people. Yeah, I hope you understood.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to play devil's advocate on that point. Because I would argue that the difference between humans, well, it's not necessarily our brain size, but what differentiates Homo sapiens from all other species is the amount of connections our brains can form. And arguably that's why we became conscious, because we developed language, right? And language allowed us to see ourselves in the past, present, and future. And then from that, you can actually build relationships with people over time. And anyway, but I would argue that's how consciousness developed, at least in some sense. Anyway, maybe that's one point of view. I don't know if that's how consciousness developed, but that's like one point of view. So if an AI was able to connect, form enough connections, if you found, like we've got neural networks now, right? If you could create them in such a way that they form as many synapses as the human brain does, which the human brain has an insane amount of synapses, something like 10 to the 23, or it's made that number up now. But if an AI could replicate that, I don't know, could it become conscious? So just to play devil's advocate on that point, yeah.
Yeah, I would also argue. I mean, also Bear wrote in the chat like, no soul, not a human. But that's the thing. Our belief is, okay, we all have a soul, right? But wouldn't a machine be able to also create? I mean, basically what Benny said, like basically his whole point. Because like, for example, if I look at my nephew Elia, right? When he was born, he didn't get anything. He didn't understand what he was seeing, what he was interacting with. And then, but throughout time, he slowly could recognize pattern, right? His brain is like a computer that slowly learns to recognize pattern. How we have, for example, today's modern AI that can recognize a 5 between a 4 or something, right? Just based on a lot of repeating and learning. And he's also slowly recognizing things. So first he just sees an image, but his brain has not enough power to, or he cannot put any interpretation into it, right? But he slowly learns to understand, oh, that's a phone, or that's a box, that's my mom. So why shouldn't be a computer in the future, which is more capable and maybe even more complicated than what we have today already, be able to create what Benny said, also be able to create its own language to communicate and become conscious? Because I would argue our brain is basically, our brain is basically just a like a supercomputer. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe our soul is something that really differentiates us and nothing can replicate it, but why not, right? Why not play the devil's advocate and make it could be actually possible?
I mean, I love playing devil's advocate, don't get me wrong, and I understand what you guys are saying, but I think you can play devil's advocate in any situation with any topic, and then you can argue these things, but makes sense, like makes completely sense, right? Like, computer, like your brain can be, like you make this other robot thing, and they're completely like super technologically advanced, and then they can be similar to a human and everything. I think like it makes sense, and I don't disagree. I think it's true. But then I think it comes down to like all the other discussions that we have. I guess it's like, where do you put the value in, or like what's your base of like value or beliefs, right? And then I guess for us, we do have kind of a common base where it's like, you know, God exists, or like soul and stuff, you know, they exist somehow. It's kind of complicated to explain or like you know, make sense of it. But I guess like that's where like it comes down to, because you know, with anything in the world, if you don't have like a point to compare it to somehow, or like a point to go back to, which would be God, or like the existence of like spiritual world or not, whatnot, it's hard, right? Because then you can argue about anything about, you know, like, and have whatever view on it, because it doesn't matter, it's very changeable, right? But then I guess when we apply this unchangeable thing that we believe in, which is like God and stuff, I guess that's where it really changes things. And that's where like this question of the robot having value, if they're exactly as a human, they have the same value. I think that's where like this whole unchangeable thing, which is God, comes into, if it comes into picture, then you can really see this robot doesn't have that same value as a human, which is, yeah, you can say it's discriminating, or like, poor robot, they have feelings and stuff. I get it, but I think that's why it's like really dangerous if we get to that point, because it's like, yeah, I don't know, you know, if they're made of steel and stuff, it's kind of, if they're made of flesh, it's even more difficult. But yeah.
But what if you're wrong? What if, because
That's true. I don't know.
what if there's actually no God, and what if there's actually no soul, and we're just a bunch of super, not computers, but like our brains are so developed that we can imagine those things, and
Yeah,
which are actually not
that's
real,
the issue,
right? That's the
that's
thing.
true.
And not everyone will believe in God and has this baseline. And also faith in God changed throughout time, right? Like they used to believe, or people have like different gods to say like, okay, lightning happens because we did something bad, right? And obviously today we say, haha, that's stupid, but I still believe in God, right?
Yeah.
What if people in 200 years will say, yeah, maybe anything that become conscious can have a soul? And then we say, yeah, those people 200 years ago were stupid. Same thing, right?
Yeah. No, I think I agree. I mean, I get it, you know, playing devil's advocate. Like I like that, you know, like I do that, or it's kind of like, yeah, you believe in God, but that doesn't mean God exists, right? Or like, you don't believe in God, that doesn't mean God exists or not, you know, it's a fact that we don't know the answer to. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
It's not
It's like-
subjective, it's objective, we just don't see it, you know, that's why we're so subjective about it. So I guess it's pointless, because we're never gonna get to an answer. But I like this discussion. I think
Yeah,
it's
it's
interesting.
interesting.
I don't think we're gonna I mean, like, we could argue all these points, right? But it's kind of, I think that's the hard part of it. That's why society didn't get to one consensus about it. But yeah.
Do you guys ever just sit in a shower and just like think about how you're thinking at that moment, and like what everything you do, you can do anything and you're in control of everything, everything's real? I don't know if you guys get that too, but like so slap into reality, realizing like everything for 4 billion years from a little cell has been essentially been growing to form me and what I'm saying right now in front of you guys. And
I mean, sounds trippy, man. It sounds cool. I can't relate that much, but it does sound cool.
I don't usually sit in the shower. Is everything okay, Alex?
I've called showers nowadays, so they last like 1 minute because I can't take it more than a minute. But yeah, it's crazy to, like, when you think about it like that, it's just like crazy.
I mean, yeah, you can extend that thought, because like, I mean, it's scientifically proven that our Earth will be eventually destroyed by the sun, right? The sun is growing. In a few billions of years, we are all dead. Like, it's inevitable, except we reach other planets. So if you think about it, yeah, you're welcome. Yes. If you think about it, like, my life is like maybe maximum 100 years long, right? Humans existed for like just thousands of years. That's it. And actually, before us, the whole universe existed billions of years before. And after we are all dead, the universe will still exist, right? So what's the point of my life, or why does it all matter, right? We're
Well,
all
that's a bit
gonna.
cynical and pessimistic.
Well,
I
it
think
is.
actually it matters
I don't
all
know,
the more.
Hannes, what
If you
does
look
it
at the
all
big
matter?
What was
scale-
it? What was the original topic here? Because I've just joined.
Yeah, so
I don't
okay,
even know
guys.
what's going.
So I think we're getting a bit off road here. Like I was also going to mention, for example, like Coco the monkey who could communicate with humans, but like never ask a question. But yeah, so the original topic was transhumanism, and so basically, expanding humans, like physical and spiritual humans, with technology. And yeah, I think I'm gonna put a stop to it for now. And yeah, if you want to, you can leave now. You can also continue discussing and or go into games, depending on what you want. I don't know if for those people that joined too late, maybe they want to hear my presentation again. Maybe not, who knows?